My mother, my brother, and my sister-in-law once left me behind during Thanksgiving, just so they could enjoy a vacation in Hawaii, using the money I paid for. They thought I would never speak up, but things are different now. My name is Emily Thompson, and this is the story of how silence kept me in chains for far too long. If you've ever felt taken advantage of by the very people you love most, stay with this story until the end. And if any part of this resonates with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to help spread powerful stories like this one. I'm Emily Thompson, 35 years old, a landscape architect living and working in Seattle. On paper, I look like the kind of woman who has it all: a solid career, stable income, and an independent lifestyle. But behind the scenes is a truth no one sees. I'm the invisible engine behind every perfect holiday gathering, every family dinner that gets proudly posted online without a single mention of me. My family isn't wealthy. My mother, Carol, has lived in the same suburban home since my father passed away. My younger brother, David, has never held a job longer than 6 months. And my sister-in-law, Melissa, well, she's more skilled at playing the victim than being a wife or a mom. I pay for everything: David's student loans, my mother's emergency medical bills, the roof repairs every winter. I work hard and never ask for anything in return, not even a sincere thank you. But even that is too much to expect. Year after year, I organize every holiday. I book the Airbnb, prep the meals, set the itinerary. I'm the one who remembers everyone's birthday, picks out gifts, calls my mom to remind her to take her meds, and transfers money into David's account when he forgets to pay the electricity bill. I'm the backbone of the family, and no one ever checks to see if I'm tired. I remember last Christmas. I spent 5 hours wrapping every single gift, labeling, decorating, personalizing. And once again, Mom said, "You always have time for these things. David's really busy, you know." Busy? He plays video games all day while I juggle 3 major design projects and prep for an international architecture competition. I used to believe that sacrifice was how you kept a family together. That if I was patient enough, good enough, giving enough, eventually someone would notice, that they'd love me back. But instead of love, I became their unlimited resource. A walking wallet, a ghostly hand cleaning up their messes. The most painful part? They didn't see it as love. They saw it as my duty, as something expected. I started to feel like I was stuck in a loop, a kind of emotional servitude I had signed up for. But then I'd tell myself, it's family. You do it out of love, not for recognition. That was before I found out they'd planned the Hawaii trip behind my back, a vacation I thought I'd be attending, like every other year. They had it booked, scheduled, paid for, using the supplementary credit card I once gave Mom for emergencies. Not a single mention of me. I didn't react immediately. I just stood there, staring at the photo they posted, all of them beaming on the beach, cocktails in hand. No message, no invitation, just the caption, "Family is everything." I smiled. A cold, hollow smile. Because that was the moment I finally understood. Sometimes, silence isn't how we preserve love, it's how we imprison ourselves. And for the first time in years, I started thinking about a life where I didn't serve people who didn't deserve me. A life where I was the center, not the shadow in their perfect family portrait. I didn't tell anyone about the photo. No calls, no texts, no angry messages, not a single bitter word. I simply stared at my phone, at that image of my mother, the same woman who once said, "Family always comes first," now beaming beside David and Melissa under the Hawaiian sun, without me, not a single mention of my name. And what I felt in that moment was nothing. No rage, no jealousy, not even heartbreak. Just an empty, frozen hollow. As if I had suddenly realized that for years, I'd been investing love in an account that could never yield returns. A family fund I kept depositing into and never once withdrew from. For the next 3 days, I stayed silent. I wanted to see if anyone would notice my absence. Would someone text to ask if I was okay? Would someone say, "Emily, we miss you"? No one did. Their posts overflowed with joy and picture-perfect captions, as if I never existed. On the fourth night, I got the first message from Mom. Just 4 words. "Are you busy, dear?" I laughed, a tired, hollow laugh.
I considered replying, saying I'd seen the photo, that I knew, but then I stopped myself, not out of forgiveness, but because, for the first time, I realized I didn't need to explain. They knew what they'd done. They knew I'd been left out. The issue wasn't ignorance, it was indifference. What hurt me wasn't the vacation, it was the silence after. My absence didn't create even the slightest ripple in their world, and I started to wonder, all these years, was I ever truly part of this family? Or just a convenient support service dressed up as a daughter? One night, I had a dream. I was standing outside the very house I'd paid to repair, roof, water heater, plumbing, watching through the window. Everyone was inside, laughing, eating, unaware I was out there in the cold. That feeling cut deeper than any betrayal. I woke up and knew one thing. This wasn't just about a vacation. This was a declaration that I didn't matter, that I was disposable, that they believed I'd keep coming back anyway, keep playing my role. But they were wrong. I started writing down every expense I had covered in the past 5 years, every urgent transfer to David, every medical bill I paid for Mom, every repair invoice for the house, not to collect repayment, but to finally see the truth. And the frightening part? I couldn't remember it all, because I never kept track. I was so used to giving, I never noticed how much I'd lost. When I saw the final number, I wasn't sad. I was stunned. Stunned that I had lived so many years without ever asking the simplest question. Don't I deserve to be loved fairly, too? Something strange happened after I finished writing down all the money I'd spent on my family. I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought seeing the final number, a sum built out of years of quiet sacrifices, would break me. But it didn't. I just felt lighter. As if, by facing the truth, I had finally pulled myself out of a long dream. One where I believed family was unconditional love, safety, and warmth. But now I saw clearly. I was just a convenient excuse for them not to face their own consequences. The next day, I drove to my mother's house with the latest water heater repair bill in hand. I wasn't planning on confrontation. I just wanted to feel the air of that house one more time. Or maybe to see if I still belonged there at all. The house was eerily quiet. I knocked. No answer. But the door was unlocked. I stepped in. The faint scent of vanilla candles still lingered. A half-eaten fruit plate sat on the kitchen table. And there it was, the thing that made me stop. A printed itinerary on the table with Hawaii Family Retreat written in my mother's handwriting. Family Retreat. I stood frozen. Not because of the paper, but because I realized no one had ever considered my absence to be a loss. No one scratched off that note. No one added "Call Emily" or "Miss Emily." I simply wasn't part of the plan. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway jolted me. I stepped into the hallway just in time to see Mom, Carol, walk through the front door, groceries in hand. She paused for a second when she saw me, but just for a second. Then came the smile. The practiced, polite, everything's fine smile. "Oh, Emily, when did you get here? I thought you were busy." No apology, no surprise, just another act in the familiar play. I handed her the invoice in silence. She glanced at it and tucked it into the drawer. "Have you eaten? There's leftover lasagna in the fridge," she said softly, as if trying to guide me back into my old role. The reliable daughter, the easy one. I didn't answer. I just stood there, looking at her, really seeing her, maybe for the first time. The woman I had cared for, prioritized, sacrificed so much for, but who had never once loved me back in an equal way. The silence between us grew thick, like a wall built from years of words left unsaid. I wanted to ask her, "Why didn't you tell me about Hawaii? Why did you leave me out, then pretend like nothing happened?" But I didn't. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew she wouldn't answer honestly. She'd say, "I didn't think you wanted to go." Or, "That was David and Melissa's idea." Or worse, "You're being too sensitive, Emily." I'd heard it all before, so I said nothing. But this time, the silence wasn't surrender. It was a choice. A deliberate retreat from a game I no longer wanted to play. I walked out without saying goodbye. No drama, no anger, just a quiet exit. And for the first time in my life, I realized that silence can also be a voice. A voice that says, "I refuse to play this part anymore." I didn't go back to that house after that day. And for 2 weeks, there was nothing. No calls, no texts, no, "Are you okay?" Not even a shallow apology. Until a quiet Saturday afternoon, while I was watering the plants on my apartment balcony, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Emily." Her voice was suspiciously soft. "I'd like to see you. Just to talk, nothing serious." I paused, then said, "Okay." I don't know why I agreed. Maybe because I was ready. Not to fight, but to finally see clearly what I had been avoiding for years. We met at a small cafe in downtown Seattle. It was nearly empty. She arrived early, as always, wearing that cream cardigan I gave her 3 Christmases ago, which somehow irritated me more than I expected. When I walked in, she stood and smiled like nothing had ever happened. "You look thinner. Is work stressful?" I didn't answer that. I just sat down and looked at her. No more polite glances, no more deference. I looked straight at the woman who shaped my understanding of love, and who I now realized may never have fully understood it herself. "You seem upset," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. "I saw the photos," I said simply. She said nothing. "I know about the trip," I continued. "I know it was planned. I know no one told me. And I want to ask, why?" She pressed her lips together, looked down into her steaming cup of coffee, then sighed. "Emily, you always make things more dramatic than they are," she began. I didn't react. No nod, no denial, just silence. She continued. "I didn't want to hurt your feelings, but sometimes you're overly sensitive. The trip was David's idea. He said you were busy, that you don't enjoy family gatherings. I just thought, maybe you needed space." "Space?" I repeated. Or was my absence more comfortable for everyone? She hesitated. No answer. "I'm not saying you don't love me," I said quietly. "But love can't be one-sided silence. I've been there every time any of you needed me. And when I wasn't, no one even noticed." "I didn't mean to." "No, you just didn't care enough." The air in the cafe chilled. We sat in silence for nearly a full minute. I placed my hand gently on the table and said, "I'm not playing the same role anymore. I won't be the background to everyone else's performance. And if you call me family, then it has to start with truth." She looked at me like she was seeing me as an adult for the first time. I didn't need her agreement. I didn't need tears or remorse. I just needed to hear my own voice. Steady, firm, not angry, just clear. I stood up. She remained seated. This time, I didn't look back. I thought I was ready for anything after the meeting with my mother. But apparently, there were still knives I hadn't seen coming. It started with an email notification from Airbnb. "Support request related to your recent guest has been received." I frowned. I didn't have any guests. The secondary apartment, my personal retreat, had been locked for weeks. I logged in and froze. 4 new bookings, 2 of them already completed. My apartment, my sanctuary, had been occupied for nearly 3 weeks, and I had no idea. I pulled up the security camera footage, low-resolution clips from the hallway and entryway, but even in the grainy video, I recognized them instantly. David and Melissa. They walked in like they owned the place, dragging suitcases, turning up the air conditioning, playing music. In one clip, Melissa was even live streaming. Finally got a quiet spot for some self-care? I couldn't breathe. That apartment took me 3 years of savings. I handpicked every chair, every piece of art. It wasn't just property. It was personal, and they had violated it. No permission, no message, not a word. I picked up the phone and called David. He answered on the 5th ring. "Hey?" My voice came out eerily calm. "Where are you right now?" Home. Why?" "Just making sure. Because I just reviewed security footage from my apartment. You were there. 3 weeks ago." Silence. Then a forced chuckle. "Oh, that. We thought you weren't using it, so we dropped by for a bit. Didn't break anything. How did you get the spare key?" "Oh, Mom gave it to us a while back." My mother had given my apartment key to my brother without telling me. I wasn't sure what hurt more, that they used my apartment like a private resort, or that my own mother, the same woman who tearfully said she just wanted me to rest, had dismissed my privacy like it was nothing. "David," I said slowly, "you and Melissa are never to set foot on any property I own again. If you do, I'll call the police. No warnings." He hesitated. "You're overreacting. We're family." "No, David, it's not family. It's trespassing. It's theft. And this time, I won't stay silent." I hung up. I sat down. My hands were still trembling, not from fear, but from clarity. I had never been family. I had been a resource, a wallet, a name on a deed, and they hadn't just stolen money. They'd taken my identity, my private space, my dignity. That moment, I understood. This wasn't hurt anymore. It was betrayal. And I no longer owed them my silence. I didn't sleep that night. Not from fear. But because my mind wouldn't stop racing, like a gate had finally swung open, letting me see my life for the first time, without the filter called family. I saw every piece. The times I canceled personal plans to take Mom to urgent care. The times I paid for David's car repairs so he could job hunt, but he never did. The holidays I orchestrated from start to finish, only to watch them accept praise like it was their right. I used to call that love. Now I saw it for what it was: programming, a quiet training. The more you give, the easier you are to erase. And now I was awake enough to name it. The next morning, I got up early, made myself a black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Like me now, not sweet, just sharp. I opened my laptop, started a spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, expense item. Column C, recipient. Column D, proof, receipts, screenshots, bank logs. Column E, legal status. Recoverable, not recoverable, needs legal advice. Every line I typed made me feel stronger. Not because I planned to sue them, but because for the first time in my life, I was accounting for myself. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. I no longer wanted to be the understanding sister, the helpful daughter, the woman behind the scenes. I wanted to show up, be seen, be recognized, even if it made some people uncomfortable. Every name I typed, David, Melissa, Carol, no longer triggered guilt. I wasn't afraid they'd think I was difficult or selfish, because I was tired of being agreeable just to be invisible. I researched laws on personal property rights. I read about privacy, ownership, and Airbnb's legal terms, things I never thought I'd need. I printed the unauthorized booking logs, pulled security footage, and saved everything in a folder titled My Truth. No drama, no embellishment, just facts. By noon, I called a local law office. A man named Mark Davis answered, calm voice, direct. I briefly outlined the situation. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he asked, "Do you want legal action, or do you just want someone to listen?" I paused, then said, "Both." I didn't need someone to rescue me. I just needed myself, and, if necessary, the law. And I knew this was the first time I was truly acting, not reacting, not enduring. I wasn't just reclaiming an apartment, I was reclaiming my worth. If there's one thing I've learned after over a decade in architecture, it's this. Nothing lasting is built without a strong foundation. Revenge for me wasn't rage. It wasn't a dramatic outburst or public shaming. It was a design, precise, calculated, airtight. I started the way I begin any project, with a systems map. At the center, I wrote, Emily, control restored. From there, I branched out into 3 pillars: physical assets, apartment, bank accounts, old shared cards, personal property; legal assets, documents, contracts, ownership, provable transactions; emotional assets, self-worth, boundaries, dignity. I examined each category like a structural engineer: what was loose, what had been exploited, and most importantly, what needed to be reinforced. Step 1. Eliminate access. I canceled the secondary credit card in my mom's name, changed every password tied to my finances, replaced the locks on my rental apartment, and updated every security code to my personal residence. I hired a private security firm to audit my cameras, making sure no one, family or not, had access to my world again. Step 2. Collect evidence. I didn't just archive Airbnb logs and camera footage. I printed emails, bank transfers, even old texts from David asking for urgent help. I labeled every folder, tagged dates, cross-referenced each file. I had lived like a ghost for so long. Now I was building a record of presence. Step 3. Legal consultation. Mark Davis, the lawyer I'd called, followed up that Tuesday. We met in his office near Queen Anne. No small talk. We went straight to the folder. "How far do you want to go?" he asked after skimming my documents. I didn't hesitate. "I want to make sure they never do this again. Not to me, not to anyone." He nodded. "Then we need more than proof. We need a strategy." I looked at him, a stranger, and felt more understood than I ever had by my own family. That night I sat back down with my systems map and added a new label: safety, not forgiveness; boundaries, not bitterness. I was no longer Emily, who hoped kinship would save her. I was the architect of my own rebuild. One action, one safeguard, one line in the sand at a time. And in this blueprint, I was the center. I used to think retaliation had to be loud, angry outbursts, slammed doors, dramatic finales. But the truth is, when you're truly ready, action doesn't need noise. It happens in silence, precise, deliberate, irreversible. I started where they least expected it. The secondary apartment. I logged into the smart control system, reset every access code, reassigned admin permissions. Security cameras were upgraded to real-time alerts. I set motion triggers for unauthorized entries. Then, I submitted a formal request to Airbnb to pause all listings while we completed an internal review. Next, linked bank accounts. I tracked down every old transfer: urgent help for David, quick errands for Mom. Any shared access, even partial permissions, I revoked, quietly, without notice. Joint assets? I filed legal motions to freeze any shared resources tied to my name. Even the suburban house I once helped Mom pay for. With proof in hand, Mark Davis began drafting a petition to revise the ownership status, at minimum, to document my stake. I didn't want the house. I wanted them to know I was awake now, and I wasn't a free ride anymore. Then came the hardest part: the emotional assets. I opened my phone, scrolled to the family group chat. I didn't rant, didn't assign blame, just one message. As of today, all access to my personal assets has been revoked. Any financial requests will go through legal counsel. I expect each of you to take responsibility for your actions. I will no longer be silent. I hit send and left the group. No one replied, but I knew that message would land like a crack of thunder, not because it was harsh, but because for the first time I wasn't apologizing for setting boundaries. I went for a walk in the park near my home. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel peace. I felt rightness. Every step a declaration. I had left the shadowlands of compromise. Back home, I saw an email from Melissa. Subject: Are you really going to take it this far? I didn't open it, just saved it to the folder labeled Evidence. An hour later, David called. I let it ring. I didn't need scripted apologies, didn't need guilty tones, didn't need recycled promises of change. What I needed was action, and that's what I was taking. Quietly, cleanly, just like they used me, without a sound. Only now I held the power. Less than 48 hours after my final message, my family began to respond, not with remorse, but with the desperation of people losing control and scrambling to play the victim. Melissa went first. She posted a nearly 3-minute TikTok. Sad piano in the background, her voice trembling. I don't know what I did to deserve this. I just wish she'd remember. Family is everything. The comments poured in. Strangers, mostly, offering sympathy. Stay strong, girl. Family can be so cruel. Money changes people. Ugh. It chilled me. Not because they believed her, but because I used to be that person. Silent, complicit, keeping up the happy family illusion. David chose a different path. A Facebook status. Betrayed by blood. Never thought it would come to this. And he tagged me. I didn't reply. But the internet? It doesn't stay quiet for long. 3 days later, someone who had once rented my Airbnb recognized the apartment in Melissa's video. They commented, "This isn't hers. I stayed there before. The owner is Emily T." From that moment on, a digital unraveling began. A Reddit thread appeared. Family drama or financial fraud. Here's what I found about a TikTok sob story. Old posts, photos, public records. Without me saying a word, the truth started to speak for itself. And it spread like wildfire. I didn't intervene, didn't post, didn't defend. I simply archived everything. Every video, post, comment. My lawyer said, "Let them speak. Every word helps us." My mother, meanwhile, stayed silent. But it was a powerless kind of silence. She called twice. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. "Emily, this is going too far. You need to reconsider before the family's name is ruined." No apology. Just fear. Of appearances. I sat in my living room, listening to that recording, and I felt nothing. No pain. No anger. Just clarity. I no longer carry silence to protect anyone else. I had chosen truth, and truth does not require permission. Now my family was getting a taste of what I had swallowed for years: misunderstanding, dismissal, marginalization. And no, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt balanced. Then something unexpected happened. A message from a stranger, a woman. It simply said, "I went through the exact same thing. Thank you for speaking up." Just one sentence, but it was the loudest confirmation that I had made the right choice. I knew Mom wouldn't stay silent forever. Sure enough, on a Thursday afternoon, she showed up at my office, unannounced, uninvited. My assistant buzzed me on the intercom. "She says she's your mother. She seems agitated." I sighed, not in fear, in fatigue. I stepped into the lobby. There she was, standing stiffly, gripping her purse strap like it was a lifeline. Her face tried for calm, but her lips were thin, pressed hard together. "We need to talk," she said, skipping any greeting. I nodded, led her to a private conference room nearby. I closed the door, sat down, hands clasped, eyes steady, no more avoiding. "I want you to stop," she said, as soon as I sat. "You're tearing everything apart." I looked at her, said nothing. I'd learned that silence can ask the loudest questions. Social media is saying all kinds of things. They're messaging me on Facebook, digging up old photos, attacking David and Melissa. Do you understand what this is doing to our family? I answered, voice calm. I'm not doing anything. I just stopped being silent. Silence keeps things intact, she snapped. Every family has problems, but you aired ours out for strangers. Now they see you as the victim, and us as monsters. I smiled, not cruelly, not bitterly, just clearly. I don't need anyone to see me as a victim. I just needed to live in the truth I kept burying. She stared at me, quiet for a beat. Then her tone softened. Emily, I know I've been a little distant, but you can be stubborn too. You always do things your own way. We've all made mistakes. I just want things to go back to the way they were. Back to the way they were, I repeated. I mean, before all this. Before you stopped obeying, started setting boundaries, started speaking. I wasn't yelling, but every word came from my spine. You don't want harmony, you want control, and you hate that I don't follow the script anymore. Her face flushed. How can you say that? I stood, calm, deliberate. I pulled a photo from my bag, a Thanksgiving snapshot from 3 years ago. All smiles, perfect lighting, carefully staged. I placed it on the table. I used to think this was a memory I needed to protect. Now I realize no one in this photo really saw me. They saw the planner, the bank, the one who never said no. I pushed the photo toward her. I don't hate you, but I'm not going back. You're destroying this family. I shook my head. No, I'm just reclaiming my place in it. I walked out, leaving her behind, no longer seated on a throne of moral high ground, but as a woman facing the weight of her own consequences. And this time, there wasn't a shred of guilt in me. After that final meeting with my mother, I knew every artificial door had officially closed. No more vague promises, no more next time I'll be different. Just me and the road I was drawing, deliberate, unyielding. My attorney, Mark Davis, sat across from me in his office that morning, flipping through neatly ordered folders. We have everything, he said. If you want to file asset misuse, financial abuse, we have a clear legal basis. I nodded, but I had something even more pressing in mind. I didn't just want to sue, I wanted to own the story. I didn't want someone else to frame me as a tragic victim. I wanted to be a survivor who chose to stop enduring. I told Mark I was considering going public, but on my terms, at my pace, in my words. No dramatics, no theatrics, just truth, told by the one who lived it. Soon after, I received a message from a reporter at the Seattle Times. They'd been following the growing online conversation and requested an interview. I agreed, under one condition. I retained editorial control. No clickbait, no poor Emily framing. Days later, I was also invited to appear on a podcast called Boundaries and Belonging, a show dedicated to stories of people leaving toxic environments. The host, a woman who had left a cultic family structure, called me herself. You don't have to name anyone, she said. Just share the journey of setting boundaries. That's what people need to hear. I said yes, not to be seen, but to echo for those still silent. And in preparing for that appearance, I realized something powerful. Silence isn't just what others impose on you. It's what you keep, long after they stop asking. I rewrote the podcast intro in my own voice. My name is Emily. I used to think love meant sacrifice, that if I was good enough, quiet enough, patient enough, they'd love me back. But the truth is, no one values what they believe they're entitled to. One day I stopped, and I started living. The podcast went live a week later, and what happened next brought tears to my eyes, not from pain, but from awe. Over 1,000 messages. Women from everywhere, Georgia, New Mexico, Canada, even Vietnam, wrote to me, "I'm at the same place you were. You just said what I've never dared to say. I haven't left yet, but now, I think I can." I thought this journey was about walking away, but it turned out it was about stepping into the light. I used to imagine that my liberation would end with a bold final period, a clean conclusion, a triumphant, happy ending. But no, true freedom doesn't arrive with a dramatic curtain fall. It comes quietly, steadily, in small details, in irreversible steps. 3 weeks after the podcast aired, Mark called me. "We've got a preliminary ruling," he said. "The court is opening a civil inquiry against David and Melissa for unlawful property use. They had no lease, no consent, and they profited from a property they didn't own." I nodded. No thrill, no rage. What I felt was simple. I was no longer inside the story. I wasn't on the defense anymore. Now I was the one writing the rules. Melissa responded predictably. She went live again, not crying this time, but furious, claiming she was used for someone else's fame, accusing me of fabricating drama to sell a book or build a brand. I said nothing. I forwarded the clip to my lawyer. The evidence kept generating itself, as if those who used to exploit me don't know how to exist without lies. My mother? She vanished. No appearances, no messages, no calls. She was now experiencing what I had lived with for years, being excluded without being named. I didn't hate her. I just no longer lived under the shadow of her disapproval. Mark suggested I file for damages. I declined. I didn't need the money. What I needed was a boundary carved in stone, and that I had secured. I decided to donate the secondary apartment, the one they'd trespassed, to a nonprofit supporting women escaping family abuse. No public statement, no grand gesture, just a signature, a handover of keys, and a quiet walk away. That evening, I sat in my main apartment and opened a handwritten letter from Texas. It was from a 19-year-old girl, purple ink, uneven cursive. "I still live with my stepmother. She controls everything I eat, wear, do. But after hearing your podcast, I've started planning my exit. I just wanted to say, you gave me a kind of courage I didn't know I could have." I cried. For the first time in months, but they were tears of recognition. I used to think that healing required an apology. But no, I just needed to be seen, by myself, and by those who had once been invisible like me. Tomorrow, I'll head to Oregon to speak at the Women and Boundaries Summit, not as the keynote, but as a peer. I don't need the spotlight. I just need a seat in the circle, where my voice is no longer a burden, but a lamp for someone walking behind me. Oregon greeted me with soft gray skies and the scent of damp pine. The air wasn't cleaner than Seattle, but I breathed easier. As if even my body knew I had shed a skin I no longer needed. The Women and Boundaries Summit was held on a small campus tucked beside the forest. No blinding stage lights, no performative banners, just circles of chairs, cups of hot tea, and eyes that knew how to listen. I didn't take the stage. I didn't need to. I shared my story in a breakout group. No mic, no script. Just my voice, low, steady, but clear as bone. When I finished, there was a deep pause. Then an older woman spoke, her voice trembling. "Thank you. I've been silent for 43 years. Today is the first time I want to speak." I smiled. I said nothing, but I knew. This was why I came. After the session, a young woman approached me, eyes still red. "You don't need to know who I am. Just know that, because of you, I'm leaving tonight. I won't take much. Just the belief that I deserve more than this." I hugged her. No advice, no roadmap. Just the embrace of someone who once stood exactly where she stands now. On the way back to my hotel, I opened my phone. A new email appeared. From an independent press. They weren't asking for a memoir. They wanted a collection of voices, stories from women who had left toxic homes and kept living. I knew I'd say yes, not for fame, but because I believe when one woman speaks, 10 more find the strength to walk. That evening, I stood in front of the mirror. No makeup, no styled hair. Just me, Emily, 35, once left behind, once erased, once the shadow in her own family. And now, a free woman, not flawless, but whole, not begging for forgiveness, but already forgiving herself. I used to think freedom was leaving, but now I know freedom is staying and still being yourself. I used to think love meant never walking away, but now I know true love begins when you no longer abandon yourself. I once stayed silent to be accepted. Now I speak, not to be loved, but because I love myself enough not to need that acceptance anymore. My story doesn't close with a happy ending. It simply opens into a beginning, this time written by me.